Chapter 2. Nate. London seduced me. There, I said it. And like any great seduction, it did it so slowly that I didn't even notice until I was slap bang in love with it. It's my brother Stevie's fault. He moved here from our childhood home in New York when he was 19, right when I'd finished college. I was supposed to be the exciting, adventurous one, but there I was, moving back in with our parents, while he hopped across the pond to attend the Royal Ballet School. At first, Stevie stayed with our Aunt Tell, but now he's in Camden in a small two-bed flat above a record shop. I never really understood why he moved out, but he always brushes it off when I ask him. We got pictures of all the landmarks at first, the novelty of the first subway, or tube as he called it, the first pillar box red bus, the first selfie with the guards standing to attention at Buckingham Palace. But then it evolved as Stevie did. As he sank comfortably into London life, we started getting pictures of nights out in Soho, his dinner in Chinatown at 3 a.m., the sparkling River Thames as he walked to dance rehearsals every morning. It always looked so exciting and, well, inviting. Then there was the second layer of seduction, all the British TV shows. Made in Chelsea, where it's always bright blue skies and crisp sunlight, Sherlock with the clipped, precise accents, and Line of Duty with the camaraderie of an English country pub. Mom and I even got into the British Christmas films and spent each year watching The Holiday, Love Actually, and Nativity. Everything about it was so picturesque, so rosy-cheeked, and just so perfect. But the thing is, although I had this secret love affair with London, I never actually wanted to go. It felt like the exciting, eclectic cousin of New York. Over the years, friends of mine would flit off, hopping over the pond under the guise of a gap year, but then they'd fall in love with the city, or another person, and never come back. If I'm honest, I couldn't fully trust in myself that I wouldn't do the same thing. I mean, Stevie had as good as moved over permanently, and if I did, then Mom would be left in New York without either of us. I couldn't do that to her. But then things changed. Mom started to get a bit well, worse. Everything got a bit worse, actually. Dad lost the sparkle behind his eyes. I felt if one more person added even the smallest feather to my cart, I'd kick it all over like a flailing buckaroo and pelt off into the distance, never to be seen again. Stevie didn't understand, really. I'd tried speaking to Dad, but he shrugged it off, saying he was fine, though he never tried to claim Mom was fine. I didn't know how I could help her, and there was no point speaking to Mom about it. You don't want to tell a sick person how scared you are of them being sick, so I just sat back doing whatever I could, but ultimately feeling pretty helpless, until one day she dropped a name into conversation like a little piece of gold dust, and I realized how I could help. Her sister, my Aunt Thelma, or Tell, as Mom calls her. Hadn't heard Mom mention my Aunt Tell for years. They spoke on the phone at Christmas and on birthdays, and we'd occasionally get some form of ridiculous newsletter through the post, stuffed full of updates about her fabulous single life in London and what she'd been up to. But that was it, and I thought Mom was fine with it, till a few weeks ago when she was having a particularly bad couple of days, and said 5 words that flicked a switch inside me. I wish Tell was here, and there it was, my catalyst propelling me into London. I tried to call Aunt Tell, I messaged her, I even wrote her a letter since she seemed to enjoy the post so much. Told her about Mom, how she'd been asking for her, how she wasn't well, how great it would be if she came back to New York to visit, but she didn't answer. Some people might take this as a sign to shelve Aunt Tell, to tell Mom that she wasn't around and then just move on with life. I, however, saw this as a challenge. Go to London, find Aunt Tell, bring her back to New York, make Mom happy, make everything that little bit better. And the thing is, once Mom mentioned Aunt Tell, she didn't stop. She started regaling me with stories about their childhood together, the fights they had as teenagers, and the trouble they got up to behind my grandmother's back. She described Aunt Tell's appearances on the stage and how proud she was, how talented Tell had always been, and how she always performed for her in their shared bedroom. Every time she spoke of her, it made the need to bring Aunt Tell back to New York burn a little stronger in my chest. If Mom looked this happy when speaking about her, if she remembered so much about her and their lives together, then imagine what could happen if she saw her in person and they spent some time together, or even just spoke on the phone, or received a letter from her. At this point, I would have settled for anything. Weeks went by and my calls, letters, emails, you name it, were all ignored. Aunt Tell didn't want to be found. She made that pretty clear. I never told Mom that I'd been writing to ask Aunt Tell to come to New York. I couldn't tell her that her own sister was ignoring her, and I had no idea why. but I could go to London and find out myself. So that's what I did, and that's what led me to this moment. Sat in a coffee shop off Oxford Circus, sheltering from the rain in the middle of October in London. Pillar-boxed red buses swishing by, people ping-ponging clipped voices back and forth, strangers at the counter ordering coffee. I arrived 4 days ago. I lean back in my seat. I'm nestled in a corner, right by the window. It's a small cafe, the walls painted a lemon yellow with rusted orange shutters and wonky teal metal tables. The cafe is buzzing with people, nipping in and out, clasping their coffees in paper bags filled with glistening treats. Condensation swells at the window, with teardrops of water running down at the corners and pooling in the deep green window frames. I prod my phone, and it looks back up at me lifelessly. I'm currently working as a writer for a New York magazine. Take the time, reviewing lifestyle events and activities. It's a decent job, and I spend most of my week nipping into new bars and restaurants, the odd art gallery, and, if I'm very lucky, a Broadway show. Then, I write about the experience. They have offices all over the world, and my editor Stefan barely batted an eye when I suggested I transfer to the London office for 6 months. That was my first sign from the universe that going to London to track down Aunt Tell wasn't a bad idea. The second was the reaction of Stevie, who immediately kicked out his housemate, who, to be fair, he did often refer to as Awful Albert, and started sending me an itinerary of what we could do together. He failed to mention that, as a performer, he works 6 days a week, and so he's never around to do all these fun things, hence my sitting alone in a cafe all morning. I sip my bitter black coffee as my plan circles around my mind, but I'm not here for fun. I just need to find Aunt Tell and bring her back to New York. She will make Mom happy, and that will make everything a little bit better. After eking out my coffee for as long as possible and avoiding eye contact from other customers who are desperate for a seat, I finally step outside into the crisp afternoon when Mom calls. It's our usual upbeat conversation. She's always brighter in the mornings and laps up the details of the cafe, the hubbub of Oxford Street, and the descriptions of the Londoners swarming like a pack of ants. After we say goodbye, I plan to go back to the flat. But the jeers and commotion of football-mad Londoners all crammed inside various pubs is too fascinating to ignore. Also, I know that Stevie won't be home from work until way after midnight, and there's only so long that I can sit staring at the four walls, waiting for him to come through the door. So, I walk into the first pub that looks as if it may have a seat for me, pull out my notebook and start Operation Bring Back Tell. Also, it aids one of my resolutions about making the most of my new life in London, getting into football. We've all seen Ted Lasso. Surely I can be the new lovable Yank, just without the mustache and the optimism. I catch sight of myself in the pub window. I wouldn't call myself unattractive, but let's say in all these British films I've watched, I wouldn't be cast as the Jude Law character. My hair is dark and curly and my beard is unruly. In my defense, my hair would be better if it wasn't constantly damp from all the British rain. I look down at my notebook. I have Tell's number. I know I could just call her and ask if I could come round. But I've already done that, haven't I? She made it pretty clear to me in New York that she didn't want to hear from me, for some unknown reason, even though she was happy to have Stevie stay with her when he was at dance school. Not that Stevie relays it in the same way on the rare occasion that you can get him to talk about it using more words than she's a dick. So I need a new plan of attack. Excuse me, I catch the eye of the bartender. Can I have another one? He is a portly man, wearing the same blue football shirt as the rest of the crowd, with large, bushy eyebrows, which he raises at me expertly. Sure, he says, picking up my glass. Same again. I narrow my eyes at the range of ales, each named more whimsically than the last. So far I've tried the Optimus Prime, surprisingly average, Firsty Ferret, quite nice, and Golden Champion, not for me. Each pump has an eccentric character on the front, and I fixate on a cartoon rabbit wearing boxing gloves, eyeballing me. This needs to be my last pint. My head is feeling a little fuzzy. Hopping hair, please, I say, and the bartender nods and plucks a clean glass from under the sink. I look around as a wave of go-ons starts up around me, and each person lurches out of their seat like pieces of popcorn. One of the players is racing down the pitch with the ball, and despite myself, I suck in a breath. The bartender is frozen mid-pour. The player is flanked by 2 men from the opposite team. As he gets closer to the goal, jabbing their feet around him to try and get the ball. Effortlessly, the player spins the ball away from them, and before I can blink, he curves his foot round the ball and launches it into the air. My heart is racing as I watch, and I suddenly feel as sucked into the TV screen as the rest of the pub. His teammate sees the ball, jumps into the air, and knocks his head against the ball. It bounces off his hand and smacks the back of the net, flying past the goalkeeper's outstretched hands and scoring into the goal. Before I can stop myself, I throw myself off my chair and cheer, punching the air. My ears are ringing, and I feel so alive that it takes me a moment to notice that nobody else is cheering. Actually, everyone else looks pretty furious. It's a handball, mate. It doesn't count. I turn around to see an older man next to me. He's probably in his late 50s, wearing a flat cap, and is smiling at me kindly. I quickly sit back down and take my pint off the bartender, trying to control the embarrassment rippling up my body. "Ah, right," I say, laughing because he hit it with his hand. I guess the man nods. That's right. I take a sip of my new beer. This one is biscuity and slightly foamy. It's the nicest one so far. Well, that makes sense, I mumble into my pint. It is called football, after all. That it is. I glance around to check the rest of the pub aren't pointing and cruelly laughing at me, like my imagination would have them, but they're back to being fully absorbed in the game. Thank God. "You're new to football, then?" the man asks. I look back at him and nod, guilty as charged. "Sounds like you might know more about American football," I shrug. "I don't know much about that either, to be honest." "Baseball?" "No." "Basketball?" "Nope." "Ice hockey?" I shake my head, and the man tries and fails to hide a smile. "I'm not really that into sports, I admit. I thought I'd try and get into football. Be a good way to really experience British culture." He cocks his head. "It is a big part of us," he agrees. I take another sip of my pint. At least that's one thing I've gotten right. "I'm Remy." He holds out his hand. It's wide and wrinkled. Stevie would have a field day reading his palm. "Nate," I say, shaking his hand. "Good to meet you, Remy." An hour later, and I'm still in the pub, my notebook open in front of me, my neat list filled with the little nuggets of information I managed to collect from Mom before I left New York. What Tell was like, what food she enjoyed, what they used to do together. Why she hasn't answered the phone to me or replied to any of my messages for the past few weeks. Well, not that one, obviously. Another one? I look up at Remy as he slaps my back, nodding towards the bartender. I smile. We're 3 pints deep now, and my eyes have gained a blissful, blurred layer which makes everything look a little bit fuzzy. I close my notebook and thank Remy as he taps his card on the machine. "How long have you been coming here, then?" I asked. "Do you live around here?" Remy looks over his shoulder as a gaggle of young men swarm into the pub, loosening their ties after a day in the office. He raises a hand to a few of them, and then moves back round on his bar stool. "I'm just by Primrose Hill," he says. "Do you know it?" I shake my head. "I don't know much about London, to be honest. When did you get here? 4 days ago. I'm still getting over the jet lag." The bartender places 2 frothy pints in front of us, and we chink them together. "What are your big plans, then?" Remy asks. I take a sip of my pint. "I don't really have any. Explore London, do some family shit, go back home." Remy pulls a face, and I realize I've given the most boring answer known to man. "What do you do?" I ask, bending forwards to make room for a girl squeezing past me. Remy almost looks surprised at this question. "I'm a cabbie." Before I can stop myself, I lean over and thwack him on the arm. "Remy, you're a cabbie. That's awesome." Remy laughs awkwardly, and I immediately feel the need to explain myself. "Sorry," I say quickly. "You're just a bit famous in the U.S. Like, do you drive one of those black cabs with the lights?" He presses his lips together and nods. "That I do. And do you know all of the back alleys and secret ways to get around the city?" He drinks his pint, looking at me out of the corner of his eye like I might be winding him up. I hold my hands up in defense. I'm just a crazy American. First time in London and all. That... Are you about to ask if I know the king? I chuckle into my pint. "No. Why do you?" He laughs, shaking his head and giving me a shove. "I do. Know where he lives, though." "That's awesome," I cry before catching his eye and feeling the penny drop. Damn, I need to stop drinking, right? I say another pint.